Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I am back from a little bit of a hiatus. I experienced an unexpected death of a relative, my aunt, on my father's side. So I had to take a little bit of a break from uploading content here on the channel. I am, however, back today. We're going to do the monthly wrap-up video or roundup video. I was completely off my schedule and routines, and it's all across my life and in all different areas, not just practice-wise. So I sort of lost track of some of the decks that I was working with. So this is going to be just really the standouts of the month, and then next month I'm hoping to go back to my regular routine and schedule and keeping track of everything hopefully. So I missed you guys. It feels like it's been a long time. I hope everything's going well with you guys. I just have a red ale here. Feel free to join me in a beverage and let's get started. So a lot of the decks are going to be reflective of grief, as I dealt with quite a substantial amount of it this past month. So I did try and talk a bit about it on the channel. There was a video that I was considering uploading. I, however, just didn't feel like it was the responsible thing to do, as I was still processing it. It, however, has been a couple of weeks and I have been processing some of my grief. But this month, energy-wise, I did notice that I was in a substantial liminal space. I still am. I feel that I'm sort of just kind of sitting in limbo with respect to how I feel about my aunt's passing. There was a period of time where I was struggling a lot with denial. I think I've somehow managed to get out of that stage, but I still feel like I'm not quite where I thought I would be with respect to my life and my routine. Like, I'm still kind of sitting in a liminal space there. I'm not quite back to my usual routine and plans, and I experienced a huge derail with respects to my plans as well. So I'm still not entirely back to myself yet. So I am feeling that next month there's going to be a huge theme of ancestry, possibly deep diving into ancestral trauma. And I've already started thinking about which decks I want to work with for the next month. So I'm here today to just wrap up the month. That way I can just sort of shift my focus into what I want to work with in August, and I'll just spend that entire week really just focusing and honing in on the energies as well as the decks that I want to work with in that are complementary to the energy. So usually what I like to do with respect to these videos is I will go over the energy that I experienced this month, then I'll get into the decks, and then I will talk about any books that I managed to read that month. So I do have quite a few reviews that I would like to do here today. There's quite a few decks. Quite a few decks came forward. So a deck that provided a huge amount of comfort and support during the processing of my grief was the Moon Temple Oracle. So this deck was sent to me for review by Llewellyn. So thank you, Llewellyn. If you happen to watch this video, thank you so much for sending this deck my way for review. This deck, it's actually been on my wish list for a very long time. So I was ecstatic when I received this deck in the mail. So this deck felt like loving, comforting messages from my matron goddess. If you guys are not new to my channel, you know that's Hecate. This just felt like a warm, comforting hug from the goddess herself or from any lunar deity. If you do practice with any particular lunar deity, I'm sure this deck would come in handy. So this deck is incredibly helpful, and I think it's a great tool for any practice, particularly if you follow the moon cycles. This deck can be very helpful for that because, as you can see in the keywords as well as the guidebook, which I'll show you in a minute, there is a correspondence for which moon phase the card will be categorized under. So you'll get information about the moon phase as well as a divinatory message, and then you also get a goddess. So there's different goddesses depicted in the imagery. So I find this deck really fulfills a lot of different roles in your collection. So if you observe moon cycles, it can be very helpful in that way. Or if you work with particular goddesses, like I work with Hecate, I found this deck to be very, not just comforting, but very supportive while I was moving through a transition in my life. I also feel like this deck is great for somebody who is not just observing moon cycles, but maybe you're interested in learning more about your own natural rhythms and cycles as well. Any type of transition you're experiencing in your life, this deck can be very helpful. It has this really liminal feminine energy. It has a very soft and compassionate energy, in my opinion. Again, it was a deck that I found incredibly comforting and supportive during a very difficult period in my life. So again, this is the Moon Temple Oracle, and this deck was sent to me by Llewellyn for review. So they are the North American distributors of Blue Angel, as this is a Blue Angel deck. You can tell by the box. Next up, I want to talk about the Feminine Myths Oracle. So this is quickly becoming one of my favorite decks in my collection. This deck, in my opinion, it's like an older sister. It's like a grandmother or a maternal figure. This deck, it's incredibly wise and knowledgeable. It's like you have access to information from all the women who walked before you and their lived experience, or I should say lived experiences. This deck just feels like a wise older sister, aunt, maternal figure, grandmother even, and she's clearly been through some shit, and she just knows. She knows things. She gives great advice. She's incredibly knowledgeable. She's not judgmental either for your experiences. She doesn't judge you for the questions that you ask either, but she just gives great advice. She's just like, she's that girl in your life or that woman in your life. That's how I feel about this deck. This deck, like I said, it's quickly becoming one of my favorite decks in my entire collection. I'm very happy that Llewellyn sent this deck to me for review. And I think it's also an incredibly beautiful deck. It takes my breath away. Some of these images are just beautiful. I've also been having a lot of fun working with this deck intuitively before I open up the guidebook. I like to see if I can get an idea about what it's talking about. So I do find this deck very easy to work with intuitively, and you guys know I love decks like that. I prefer to work with my decks intuitively. So this is the Feminine Myth Oracle. I absolutely love this artist too. I think I'll collect all her decks, to be honest with you. The next deck I have, I'm a little surprised. I wasn't anticipating working with this deck so soon. This was one that I had originally anticipated picking up in the fall. So this is the Midnight Magic deck. It's by Sarah Richard. So she is the creatrix of the Green Witches Oracle deck, which I have been working with the Midnight Magic deck. However, I'm going to save my opinion for this deck for another time, just as it didn't really stand out this month. I really just started working with it again after quite a long time. I've had this deck for quite a while in my collection. So I'll reserve my opinions on that deck for a later time on the channel. However, going back to the Midnight Magic tarot deck, again, I wasn't really expecting to work with this deck until closer to the Samhain Sabbath, like one of the later harvest Sabbats. Even Mabon I could see, but for some reason I kept seeing mushrooms everywhere. I would be out for a walk and I would see them in nature, or I would just come across images online of mushrooms. Like, it just felt like it was a symbol that was stalking me. So I felt, okay, maybe I should go ahead and pull the trigger, pick this deck up. And I'm very impressed by this deck. Let me show you some imagery. It's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful deck. So this I've added to my glamour magic practice, and you'll see why. The vivid colors, the beautiful illustrations, absolutely stunning. There seems to be some kind of animal or insect depicted in each image as well, which I do enjoy. There is for all the suits, there is a different plant depicted in this kind of border fashion. So you'll get like a different, I'll show you a different one, hold on. You'll kind of get an idea of what season just by looking at the borders. The majors are absolutely stunning. This deck has a very liminal energy, again, so we're dealing with mushrooms, so mushrooms will eat decay. So they grow from decaying matter and can be powerful teachers of rebirth and adjusting to a new life. So I felt that mushroom was coming forward as a teacher to teach about transformation and transmutation. I feel like that was the main reason why mushroom came forward. They came forward as a guide, a spiritual teacher. And I do believe that I mentioned that in a previous video. I can't exactly remember which video, but I do, if you're new to the channel, I do what would be considered plant spirit magic or witchcraft, where I do find that not just animals come forward, but plants, plant spirits, anything that grows from the earth will also come forward as a type of spirit guide. So this deck has also been incredibly helpful for the transition from dark to light, or life after death. So I've been working with it a great deal in that way as well. So again, this is the Midnight Magic Tarot, and this is a mass-produced deck. I don't believe I've showed you a single indie deck yet. So another deck that I have here is the Hedgewitch Tarot. This is an absolutely beautiful deck. I don't believe it's been released yet. I'll show you the box. This is a new Llewellyn deck. I believe it's coming out late August, I think. It's coming out. And this is a Llewellyn deck. The cardstock is very different from any of the other Llewellyn decks that I have. The box is also much smaller. You can see it comes with a little insert for your cards. The guidebook is much smaller now too, but you get full color reproductions still. This is a very beautiful deck. So my first impression of the deck, which I forgot to mention, that this deck was sent to me for review by Llewellyn. So again, thank you so much, Llewellyn. If you happen to watch this video, I've been really enjoying this deck. So this is, again, the Hedgewitch Tarot. Very different cardstock. It feels more like papery or cardboard. It's like very thin, but it feels more like cardboard or paper. It has a bit of a texture on top, so this could be like a linen cardstock, to be honest with you. I don't know if you can even see, but this is an absolutely beautiful deck. It has a lot of herbs or plants, a lot of nature depicted throughout the deck. This deck also has an incredible, it's a very liminal energy. It feels like I think this is one of the strongest decks that I have for connecting to the other side. This deck has a very strong connection to the spirit world. I feel like there's an aspect of that with every tarot, but for this deck, it's amplified. This is probably, like I said, one of the strongest decks in my collection for that. And this has been giving me messages from spirit and relatives who've passed on. So this is an incredible deck for receiving messages from the beloved dead. This, again, I feel like this is going to be a really strong equinox, the time where the veil is super thin kind of a deck. And what's really interesting about the guidebook is you get your, I think it's an upright and reversed. Hold on, let me get the book. What's really interesting about the guidebook is you get a keyword, you get reversed keywords, you get a 1-card answer, then you get something called the border, and then the writing. And then you get a veil message, which is kind of like a ritual. Or there was one card that had, for the veil message, it was talking about how rosemary can be used in protective workings. So I did want to let you know that some of the cards are a bit different. So I wouldn't say that this is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. It's sort of, I feel like this is a deck that you're going to want to spend time with, get to know. It's a very beautiful deck though, and I do feel that it's going to repay you for the time investment that you give it. As you can see, this is it has an autumnal energy to me. I can see this one being very in heavy rotation during Mabon and Samhain. There's also a lot of birch trees depicted. I don't know about you, but every time I see birch trees here, there's a lot of them in my neighborhood. I always see them, like, it looks like they have eyes on the bark. So I always see them as like guards of the space. We actually have one out in the backyard as well, so I do feel like this very strong protective energy from birch trees. I almost see them as like the watchers. Anyway, so this is again the Hedgewitch Tarot. So this is again a deck that's coming out, I think, towards the end of August. I think August 30th, but don't quote me on that. And it is just absolutely stunning. So far, I'm really enjoying working with it. Getting to know the deck as well. Between the Worlds, this is a deck that I've had in my collection for a pretty long time. This is, to me, this is like my Hades Underworld deck. This is typically something that I work with a lot in the fall. It, however, really wanted to come forward as I moved through like quite a difficult experience in my life this month. I'm not gonna lie to you. This deck has a very folk practitioner or folk magic energy to it. It feels really raw, gritty. It's like a person that's not afraid to get their hands dirty, not afraid to take a cold, hard look at themselves in the mirror and do that work. It's a little dirty, it's a little dank, it's definitely not for, and you'll see when I show you the imagery, definitely not for the faint of heart. This is not a happy, you can get happy messages from this deck, but it's, for the most part, I find this deck very honest. This is a deck, again, that I connect to Hades, to the underworld. Shadow work, exploring the more tempestuous or nasty aspects of ourselves, the parts of us that's the backing. The parts of us that we'd rather avoid. And because it has a very strong folk magic energy to it, folk practices, it's a very folk practitioner deck to me. It feels very of the land, connected to the land. Again, just really not afraid to get into the dirt, get their hands dirty. I feel like this is going to be an excellent ancestry deck for exploring my ancestry and my generational trauma next month, which I do believe I did mention a little bit briefly about that, how I am planning on exploring that as a theme next month. But this is quickly also becoming one of my favorite decks. This is a very, tell it like it is. It also has a very liminal energy in the sense of exploring, I guess, darkness to light, like you're bringing information from the subconscious to the conscious. Okay, next up I have the Lacrimosa Tarot. This deck, again, this was a very comforting deck while I was moving through my underworld, my personal underworld experience. This deck, you guys know, if you're not new to the channel, you know that I've had an interesting experience with this deck. And initially, when I first got it, this deck really wanted to talk about shame. This deck I connect to the underworld. Again, it has that kind of dark underworld energy. It's perfect for exploring the subconscious. You know, things that we'd rather run from, emotions that we'd rather avoid or hide from. And this deck was, it just provided space for me. It allowed me to just be present with my grief, with my sadness. to mourn quite an unexpected loss in my family. This deck, it just really holds space for very deep emotions, intense emotions, pain, suffering, trauma. I'm just quickly going over my notes to see. But there's just something about the deck's imagery and its personality. This is one I would align with death, like the tarot card in the aspect of endings and new beginnings. And the deep emotions that loss can leave in its wake. Why is most of it upside down now? So again, this is the Lacrimosa Tarot. This is quickly becoming another one of those underworld decks in my collection. And lastly, I have the Deathly Flowers Tarot. So this is also becoming quickly one of my very favorite decks in my entire collection. This deck I align with the Dark Feminine, which I do believe that I am a physical embodiment of in some form. I do feel that. I very much align it with the dark face of Persephone. It's got that death kind of underworld energy to it. Again, it has like this very autumnal, Samhain, death and rebirth kind of energy to it. Again, it represents the dark feminine in my opinion. She's the keeper of the mysteries and the unknown. She walks the threshold of life and death, and she is our greatest transformation. That's how I feel about this deck. I also kind of feel like, with respects to my own personal aesthetic, I've recently realized, like, I feel like I'm kind of like Persephone. I have both a dark face and a light face, and I'm sure you've seen that. If you're not new to my channel, you've seen that over time on the channel. And I did have to take a bit of a break from this deck because this is a very empowering deck for me. This is I come to it when I want to feel powerful, or I want to know just how powerful I am that day. So this was one that I had to step away from for a bit, and I was working more with the Lacrimosa Tarot or the Midnight Magic Tarot, more along those types of energy decks, or the Hedgewitch Tarot. But again, I had to come back to this deck because, again, I feel like this is an incredibly empowering deck. This is perfect for a practitioner that aligns with the dark feminine, or you're a fan of the dark feminine aesthetic, or alt girl aesthetic. I like to call it alt girl, but whatever terms you align with that. But yeah, the imagery is just absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy that Chanel opened this deck up for all of us to have in our collection because it's quickly becoming one of my favorites. Okay, so I'm going to switch to my notes app for my notes because I am very eager and excited to share my review of the Psychopomps and the Soul book. This was a book that was written by Tiffany Lazick, who I believe is Canadian. She did talk about her experience living in Canada. So this book was sent to me for review by Llewellyn. So this was an incredible read, in my opinion. This is a book that is going to be permanently joining my collection. This is, in my opinion, I consider this, I still have decks on the mind. I consider this book, it shifted my practice. And this is a book that I'm also going to be picking up a copy for my sister because I can't be parted from it. I just always want access to the book, and I also want to support the author as well. And I just believe in the book. I think that this is such an incredible book. I think every practitioner should have a copy of this book in their arsenal. This book, the author walks us through her experience of becoming an accidental psychopomp. She has lost quite a few loved ones in her lifetime, and she's also a psychotherapist. So you get an interesting perspective because it's coming from somebody who is quite knowledgeable of the psyche, of therapy. She bridges the gap between spirituality and psychotherapy, I think, beautifully in this book. So not only does she explore different psychopomps through different myths, she also categorizes them. So, for example, there's our beloved Hecate, who is considered a guardian of the threshold, but then there's other different types of psychopomps. Like there's one that she classified as the comforter as well. And she goes over it in quite interesting detail. I found that this book was incredibly helpful in identifying different types of psychopomps that existed throughout all sorts of different cultures. Like she doesn't just talk about the Greek pantheon, she talks about a lot of different pantheons. There's Norse, she even goes over the Hindu, and several others as well. So very fascinating in that sense as well. So you're seeing all these different lenses or different cultural lenses, and then she categorizes them, and then she'll explain why they are lumped into this category. Not only does she talk about the transition from life to death, she talks about life after death as well. The transition between death and life. She also talks about grief, trauma, addiction, and shame. She includes very helpful rituals, meditations, journal prompts, and she also includes some very helpful information on setting up sacred space. The book, just personally, it brought me to tears several times, and I do think that this is it's a valuable book to have in your collection because society teaches us to ignore death. I feel like societally we're disconnected from death. We'd rather avoid it. We don't look at it. We're afraid of it, and we're brought up this way. We're wired this way. So I feel like this is a very important book to have in your collection. I went through it very quickly. It was a book that I found very helpful while I was going through my own personal experience with grief and the loss of a loved one. So I do think that this is a book that's excellent for practitioners or psychopomps if you work with a psychopomp like Hecate, for example. If you have a fear of death, I think it's just great for anybody, as I said, because of our societally, because of how we're sort of wired or trained not to look at death. Most people avoid it. Some people find it macabre or morbid, as well as it's not just talking about physical death. It also goes over symbolic death or a metaphor. What's the word? Just like a symbolic death as well, or just really any endings and new beginnings that you can experience in your life, like we all do, right? So this was an incredibly helpful book. Again, this is one that I wanted in my collection always. This changed my practice. I think this book is very helpful for also understanding Hecate and her aspect of being a psychopomp or a goddess of the liminal better as well. But that concludes this video. From what I can see, looking at the time, this is going to be a longer video. I hope you guys had a wonderful July. I know we're a little bit early. We still have a week left of July, but like I said, I am planning on spending the next week really getting into the energy of August and preparing that transition. I'm going to be selecting what decks I want to work with. I already shared a little bit about how I want to be working with ancestors, and really doing a deep dive into that as well. Before we end the video, I just remembered I do like to do energy readings for the month ahead. What deck do I want to work with? Oh, also, I'm about to close out my current journal. I have this one. So I like to purchase a lot of my jewelry from Regal Rose, by the way. That's why I have these stickers here. If you guys are interested, I do get a lot of my jewelry pieces from them. But I do have, like, I can't believe I'm almost done this journal. I think I started it in the end of March. And I have just a little bit more pages left here. Once I put images, it's going to fill up quickly. So I went ahead and I selected this color, this journal color, and look how gorgeous this is. I really like these journals. I'll put a link in the description box below if you're interested. I don't make money off the link. It's just, I just like shouting out good products. I don't like to gatekeep here, but I'm absolutely like obsessed with these journals. My previous one is also the same journal. They come with like a ruler. They came with stickers. You can tab your page. So I like to divide my journals by month, but you can do anything you want with those. I'm also thinking of doing a lot of black and white, because I really like the contrast off the blue. So I've selected a bunch of stickers that are mostly black and white with this huge sticker here as a centerpiece. Really into cauldrons as well. And moths. I have a lot of moth imagery. I'm feeling incredibly drawn to them right now, which makes sense for what I'm going through. Let's use the Lacrimosa Tarot today. Oh, I want to pull from the Wild Unknown Archetypes first. Let's pick an archetype for the month of August. And this is going to be our main theme. So I already have the cave coming up here. So we're feeling quite solitary at the moment, or I should say throughout the month of August. Some of you might be working with Hecate, or you're feeling incredibly drawn to her. You're moving through a transition. Like like a significant transitional change. This is a rebirth. Okay, so now I'm going to be pulling from the Lacrimosa. So already one card wants to come forward. Yeah, so there's some kind of an understanding. This could be an intuitive understanding that there needs to be some kind of a disconnect from something in order to realize a dream or something that we really want. So there needs to be some sort of, I don't want to say a cutting cords, but possibly some of you are thinking about that. Cutting cords ritual or something. You're definitely walking away from something. You're walking away from something. But there's like an intuitive understanding of that. The 5 of Coins is on the back of the deck. So there's been an incredibly painful experience. That's caused us to become quite solitary. I feel like it does kind of go into the message that we just went into, because not only did we pull the cave archetype, but we were talking about walking away or disconnecting from something. Because there's an intuitive understanding that something needs to change in order for us to get what we want. So there's really a seeking of answers from within that's occurring this month. And some sort of painful experience initiated this all. Some sort of, because I associate the 5 of Coins or the 5 of Pentacles with suffering. Physical pain and suffering. This could also be financial, a financial suffering as well, but mostly I associated it with a physical pain and suffering or experience. So this month looks like it's going to be very transformative. There's an incubation period with the cave here, and really this hermit energy is really shining to me. It feels very strong. There's this solitude, this going within in search of answers for our future. And because I can't think of a better word at the moment, some soul searching. Anyways, this looks like it's going to be a very transformative month up ahead to expect, and I'm wishing you all the best. I wish that you guys have a fabulous August. You will see me again on the channel if you guys are interested. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.